It's midnight on the 26th, and this upload is still regarding the ongoing issues that I'm experiencing. Um, I've mentioned already about being in public accommodation and how there's been very dangerous false claims being stated since 2017, 2016 even actually. Just a year after I gave birth and got married. So, as I said, my character and reputation has been defamed. Um, I'm here now in a HAPS apartment, and the individuals that are making false claims are not comprehending how dangerous a situation they've caused in society. Um, it's very serious, um, and it's a huge concern that adults would facilitate any individual, person, child, whatever, um, telling lies or making false claims. So that's just to establish first things first in this upload. The next issue, the main issue that I want to talk about is with regard to spirituality. As I've said, I've been a member of the fellowship since 2006. I've worked in sobriety, recovery, fellowship, personal development, all of that kind of self growth studies and support groups voluntarily with other agencies in the county and in the country of Ireland. Um, that was part of my objective as a light worker to help others. And what I'm experiencing in this town at the moment is nothing more than nonsense. As I've said, my character has been defamed by individuals that don't have any knowledge of me, um, that have already claimed the most ridiculous falsehoods, that have caused very serious damage to my profession and my character and my reputation. So anyway, with regard to the concern of fellowship and sobriety and faith and spirituality, um, with regard to sobriety, there's no requirement except a desire to be sober. That's a subjective choice. It's a personal choice. It's not, you know, um, it's not. It's not something that someone could lay down the law to you about. If a person chooses to not be sober, that's their personal choice. It's not something you can enforce. Um, so basically, another fantastic aspect of the fellowship is that it has no denominational creed or faith or preference to any religion. You could be atheist, Buddhist, you could be Catholic, Protestant, could be whatever religion you are. It doesn't make a difference in sobriety or fellowship. Um, Now, in a previous upload, I've touched on the aspect of caste systems in society and that association being with Buddhism and that faith being of love and peace and serenity. A caste system will be based around spiritual premises, and what my perspective I want to share with people in this upload is that with regard to any caste system, it isn't necessarily based on wealth or position or power. It's supposed to be based, as far as I've learned, from the knowledge of and wisdom of spirituality. So that's my perception on the caste system. And then, with regard to the other aspect that I'm interested in discussing, Puritanism. I find it interesting that any society would espouse Puritanism and then practice the very opposite. As I've said, there's been a lot of, how would you say, foul play um, and vendettas of hatred perpetrated against me intentionally in society um, since getting married and giving birth in 2015. Um, I've experienced a lot of criticisms, a lot of falsehoods, a lot of intrusions, etc. And I'm just wondering, when you think of Puritanism, you think of purity and pure of thought, mind, body, soul, etc., and intentions, pure intentions, etc., etc., etc. So I'm just wondering, with regard to people's concepts of Puritanism, how can they espouse such when not exactly practicing such? Do you know what I mean? How can people be espousing Puritanism and yet practicing foul play? So that's a contradiction and a hypocritic, um, you know, behavior in itself. So there's hypocrisy. Did I say hypocritic or hypocritical? Hypocritical um, approach to Puritanism. Um, so there seems to be a lot of interest and discussion about faith lately. And since I've been on this road since 2006, I think I'm fairly capable enough of distinguishing between when people are practicing purity and when people are being impure. And with the lies and the falsehoods and wrongdoings and violations that are being perpetrated, it appears that uh, this situation isn't so pure at all. Um, the very fact that there's so much hypocrisy and harassment and hatred just proves that the very opposite of Puritanism is occurring. So that's my perspective with regard to caste systems and spirituality and Puritanism and spirituality. So, from my perspective, as a person that's pretty qualified enough to be discussing these matters, especially from a sociological perspective, um, I'm clarifying that as a member of the fellowship, there has been, as I've said, violations of my privacy, and that occurred on several occasions. And I've also discussed how there's been theft of creative property and intellectual property of my work and studies and research over a 10-year period. Um, there's been exploitation also of that work, and there's been credit claimed for the work that I have done by individuals that have trespassed, that have violated, that have been negligent and, in their conduct and behavior. So the professionals that aren't being so professional and that are using very unethical means of causing further violations and wrongdoings are causing a very serious threat to society. And unfortunately, they don't see it like that because they don't seem to understand already how far the damage that has been caused has already, you know, affected people so far. And that's only in a short space of time of 2 years since 2017. So I'm just wondering, for the intelligent professionals that are supposed to be ethical in their conduct and behavior, and, you know, I'm just wondering, um, when they're violating privacy and using unethical means to attain information that they have no right to attain without authorization, I'm just wondering um, who in Dáil and Garda headquarters up in Dublin and the UN agencies that I've contacted would facilitate such unethical professionals. Um, so there are three very kind of serious matters that I wanted to address in this upload. A caste system with such serious discrimination and such, how would you say, inappropriate categorization of people and the subjugation of people and the suppression of people, um, while, basing their judgment calls on falsehoods and having used manipulation and whatnot to attain what they don't own. Um, so that's the perspective I have on caste systems. I would base my perceptions of caste systems against the premise of spirituality and faith and ethics and good behaviour and morals, etc., which is quite contrary to what is being practiced in situations that I'm experiencing. So that's hypocrisy at its worst. Um, and then, with regard to the issue of Puritanism, how can anyone espouse to be pure and practicing Puritanism while, you know, perpetrating such, you know, serious wrongdoings? So I'm just wondering, as a whistleblower and that has experienced all these wrongdoings that the ombudsman are aware of, I'm just wondering what protection are authorities giving to citizens like myself in the circumstances that I'm in that are being, violated, that are being obstructed from attaining my legal rights, that information is being withheld from me, that there are individuals intruding and imposing and, you know, causing very serious harm. I'm just wondering, as a whistleblower, why haven't the ombudsman addressed the issue properly, and why haven't authorities addressed the issue properly of how this ongoing issue of liars basically causing problems that, have only been exacerbated since they first commenced in this vendetta. So it's all very serious. And as I've said, this is a day to day occurrence of people just making false claims. Um, they've been making false claims since 2016. The initial wrongdoings commenced in 2017. It's now 2019. And the Human Rights Violations Declaration has been very seriously violated. Um, so I'm just wondering, EU law, whistleblower protection, people constantly telling lies and causing problems. What kind of a society is this? Is it pure? Is it spiritualized? Is it progressive? Is it ethical, moral? I've clarified and established what's been stolen from me. I'm after clarifying how how I'm in, the circumstances I'm in, and how there's been obstructions to justice. So, people claiming Puritanism and causing these very serious violations and wrongdoings is a very huge contradiction. So, as a person that's been in sobriety since 2006, um, you know, I'm just wondering, what have sober, sane individuals to say about all of this? Um, are the mental health professionals going to address the people that have a pathological instinct to, exacerbate this kind of a vendetta? Um, what kind of protection have citizens to live safely in society without people violating and intruding and causing problems? So these are my concerns at midnight on the 26th of December 2019. This is an ongoing issue from day to day. Um, so I'd appreciate it if those that are obstructing my right to privacy and my right to safety in society without any further violations or wrongdoings being perpetrated against me would, acknowledge how serious a problem people have caused. Hatred is a very sick and serious disease of the mind that, causes bigger problems in society. Um, so that's not exactly, you know, exemplary of Puritanism, is it? So, anyway, the final thing that I wanted to say is that the government, Leo Varadkar, I'm wondering, why haven't you responded to the correspondence I've sent with regards to these matters that have been caused in society? As a citizen and as a law abiding citizen and as a humanitarian and as a peace project campaigner since 2006, which is over a decade, and as you know, as as a qualified professional that's been violated very seriously constitutionally and with regard to human rights, I'm wondering why is Leo Varadkar not acknowledging these issues? And I'd also like to know who is obstructing and violating my private emails, preventing the assistance from civil liberty agencies and UN agencies to recognise the violation of human rights in Tralee County, Kerry, Ireland. So these are the matters occurring. Um, I'm aware of the threat to society, and I'm wondering when are the authorities going to confront the threat to society? Because power players manipulating situations with their wealth that has been stolen from people, innocent people like myself, is a very serious criminal offence. So, how long are they going to prolong this? And as regards freedom of information, I've sought, as I've stated, information legally and formally with regard to legislative issues that concern my situation, and that information has also been withheld from me. So, as a law abiding citizen, um, regardless of personalities and popularity, there's principles to uphold that the Constitution would, expect. Well, you know, the writers and makers of the Constitution would expect from present days, present day politicians. There's no reason for me to be blacklisted. I've not I've not caused any offense to anyone, and you know, this is a very nervous situation for me to be in with people, violating my human rights. So it's basically a serious issue of unethical practices and serious violations, and I'm just wondering when are the UN agencies, civil liberty groups, and the government of Ireland going to address the matters? So for the second or first upload actually tonight or today, 26th of December, just after midnight, this is the current situation. So as they say, what is it they say about treat your neighbor as you treat yourself or something like that? Do you know? So if people want to be practicing, I hope they're going to, well, if they're going to be preaching, I hope people are going to be able to practice what they preach.